Welcome back to another episode of EP Talks, the official podcast of Everyday Principal. In this episode, founder and CEO Andre Wicks is joined by 2020 Massachusetts Principal of the Year, Dr. Stacy Monette. Listen and walk away with valuable insights to help you grow your leadership. Inform, influence, inspire. Welcome back, listeners, to EP Talks. This is Andre Wicks, founder and CEO of Everyday Principal, and I'm joined today by Dr. Stacy Monette. Stacy is the 2020 Principal of the Year for the state of Massachusetts, and so I'm excited that she's part of the program today. I think we have a good program planned out. We have a couple good prompts to get the conversation going, but as you know, who knows where the conversation is going to go. The one thing I can promise you is that the conversation will be fruitful and that you will walk away feeling like you've gained something. So with that, let me introduce Stacy and have you tell us a little bit more about you and where you're coming from and your experiences.
Well, I'm excited. Okay, so I am Stacy Monette, and I sometimes struggle whether I need to put doctor in there or not because I just feel like it's so weird. I grew up in a very small town. I think I have earned it, but it's still a little weird to me. I grew up in a very small town in northern New York, rural America, where home is still, everybody's still living there. I landed in Massachusetts. I've been here, gosh, how many years now? Probably 24. This is my 26th year in middle school, and I keep saying I have yet to leave middle school. I was a special ed teacher. That's my love. That's my original background, and moved into administration, and I was an assistant principal for 10 years. And now this is am I doing the math right? I think this is my eighth or ninth year as a principal. I was at the same district for 14 years, and then I jumped to another district for 6 years where I got principal of the year, working under the most amazing superintendent I'll ever have the pleasure of working for. And then I left and went to a 7 through 12 building and realized that 7 through 12 it's not where I need to be. And then came back this past year. It's not my jam. You know, my middle school kids got lost. There's no identity.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that a bit. I love the high schoolers, loved it, and it was a great experience. But now I'm back in middle school.
All right.
Which is my love.
Well, welcome back. All those years in middle school, some might say you're stuck in the Bermuda Triangle.
And my family says I never left 8th grade. So
I've always kind of thought of until I got here. You know, I've spent 2 different stints at middle school. Once as an assistant principal, and then now as a principal. And if you don't go into it with the right mindset, it can feel like the Bermuda Triangle of the K-12 system. So
agree.
But I love it. I love it so much. And obviously you love it too. So,
I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah. Well, all of the middle school principals that are out there, you're definitely going to see the value in this conversation as we get to learn from Stacy today. So let's get the conversation going with this first question. It's been 4 years since you were selected the 2020 Massachusetts Principal of the Year. At that time, you were at Baird Middle School. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So since that time, like where you are now, what's changed and what hasn't changed?
As far as what I see in education?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Okay. Great question. So when I got Principal of the Year, it was in the height of COVID. And if every administrator you've ever talked to, it was the most stressful time of ever being a principal. And I remember when I had my last interview with the selection committee, and I'm in my office, nobody else is there, no kids have been there for months. And there was one woman on the panel, and the rest were all males. And she goes, Stacy, like, what are you doing for yourself? And I must have looked like completely exasperated. I go, I run every single morning at 5 a.m, and it's the only quiet time I get. And I remember her just nodding her head and like ready. So I keep saying, I'm like, I think she was like, okay, she's taking care of herself first.
Yes.
I think in the 4 years, which I can't believe it's been 4 years, I've had a lot of different experiences during that time. I was at Baird, and I think when I got it, I'd been there maybe 5 years, and it was a 6 through 8 building. And, we had a superintendent who was pretty rock solid. And then when he left, you started to see the trickle effect that everything kind of changed. And so then I left. And then my assistant principal left. Like, it was just one of those, like, I think COVID made people kind of question what our next steps were going to be. Like I just said, I jumped to a 7 through 12 building, and I'm like, okay, let me see. What I've seen for me in the last 2 years is a lot of different, you and I spoke briefly before we started this podcast, but just the amount of resources and the inequity in districts. The district I was in, the 7 through 12, had a lot of resources and a lot of things, technology, the state of the art technology. I came here, and where I'm at now at Charlton, very little resources. And it's been refreshing for me to see blended learning truly at the heart of what blended learning is. And it's made me kind of sit back and reflect about where we've come so far. Like, technology right now can be the end all be all. And I think teachers sometimes get so dependent on it. And here I'm seeing like teaching. I don't have a lot of problems with cell phone use here. Whereas, in the last 3 years, we never would have gotten through COVID without technology. Everybody was locked in. This district, for some reason, got through it and managed to kind of pull back the reins. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but we're not a one-to-one school. And I'm 100% okay with that. And this is somebody who wrote their dissertation on technology in the middle school classroom. So I've kind of had to eat my words a little bit, because when I walk around, I see kids being kids. And then I've kind of watched the pendulum swing a little bit, that now it's national attention on social media. And now the pediatrics, association is releasing a warning about it. That's the biggest change with me, is I always go back to, are our kids doing okay? And social media is not. It's not doing anything for our middle school. Middle school they're not ready. They're not ready for devices. They're not ready for social media. And as much as I've tried to, over the past 10 years, talk about digital citizenship and all that stuff, they're not.
Right.
Their frontal lobe is not ready for it.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. They need help. They need help with that.
Yeah.
It's
so
just,
I don't know if I answer that or not, but my biggest change right now is just watching that pendulum going. We were so stuck in technology going into COVID. We could not have done this. And then now coming out of it, I feel like maybe we're finally stepping back to go, this isn't okay. Too much.
No, you did a great job. I appreciate that. It's fascinating to, and it's why we do this podcast. It's fascinating to hear the stories of what's happening across our country and the globe. A couple things that you said that really resonated with me that I appreciate about your leadership is that I've always found it interesting, for as dynamic of a system or a sector as K-12 education, you think about it, there's change every single year. You're still hiring new staff, right? You get new students every single year. Like, there's change all around us, yet it's not unusual for people in the K-12 system, whether it be teachers or administrators, to really, find change abrasive.
Right.
And what I hear you saying is that, you've really embraced that change. You wrote your dissertation on technology in education, and here you are years later recognizing the need for adaptation and evolution, even to the things that you believed wholeheartedly. I mean, you spent hundreds of hours and then you had to defend this dissertation, and people agreed with you.
Right. Yeah.
And now, like you said, the pendulum has swung, and we're recognizing, and we shouldn't be shocked by that. I think that's something that's so important in the world that we live in, is that not only should you not be shocked by change and the need for evolution and adaptation, you should have come to expect it.
Right.
So no, that's awesome. One other thing that you talked about a little bit that leads into another question that I had for you is this idea of the differences, and people recognizing or needing to recognize the importance of difference. So even within the same community, there are a lot of differences from school to school, neighborhood to neighborhood. And the question that I wanted to ask you, having been in a school or a school system where it was rich, it was abundant with resources, and being in a place where resources are scarce, what advice would you give to principals that are struggling And what advice would you give the principals that are kind of in that sweet spot and maybe thriving?
So again, coming here and seeing with a whole different lens, these teachers are working really hard to be creative. If they don't have the resources and they don't have the technology and they don't have everything handed to them, and I call it old-fashioned teaching, but when I walk around the building, I'm seeing old-fashioned teaching. Like
The good stuff.
I'm seeing the good stuff. I'm seeing kids, and the curriculum that we've bought into is a whole different way of teaching. I'm learning so much about so there's lots of grants, and this district gets a lot of grants towards our new curriculum. I feel like the one thing I would tell principals who are struggling is if they're struggling because there's a lack of resources, teachers just know how to roll up their sleeves and get creative. Like you need to be like, we don't need all the fancy. Teaching is teaching. It goes back to, again, I've had this, being in this district has kind of set me back. And I've been like, oh my gosh, this is the reason why I went into this. Is kids are learning and they're not locked in and they're not doing everything on a computer. It's nice not to see kids in front of a screen. I'm going to keep going back to that, and I apologize. But I feel like just setting that bar to just know when you're meeting with your staff, like, stop complaining they don't have money. We don't have money. Like I don't want to hear about what are we going to do to replace it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I like tell the story about you buy the fancy Christmas present and your kid plays with the box. That's what you know what I mean? Like that's the analogy. Like you don't need all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
And the principals who have everything, like I felt like in my other district, and I love that district. I did. And they were really hardworking teachers, but they weren't very creative because everything was there.
Right.
You know, sometimes you kind of have to do a workaround to be like, how can we access everything and make it a level playing field for everybody? And here, it's level. They don't have fancy devices. You know, cell phone use, we barely get cell reception here. It's a different, it's like how I grew up in Northern New York. I mean, really, it's rural America. And we're not, I think we're suburban, but.
Yeah, it is a different world. If you're in a place that doesn't get cell service, that's unusual. You know,
Very.
you have to, you're left to your own devices. I love how your leadership approach, still just getting to know you, but I feel like I'm seeing into your style of leadership is let's control the controllables. Let's not admire the problem. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's get the hell after it because that's what we have to do. Why? Right. Because kids are depending on us.
Right.
You know, the time that we're spending, or wasting, wishing, and reminiscing about the way that it used to be, our kids are waiting to learn.
Right. And I think it's ingrained here that they don't know any different. Like they just do the job. And I have a really hardworking staff and they are energetic and they get the job done.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. We similarly, in Spokane Public Schools, Spokane is a relatively large community. Spokane Public Schools is the second largest school district in the state of Washington. We serve right around 35,000 students, 5 high schools, 9 middle schools, and 35 elementary schools. And we also have a few options schools. And what I've recognized is that, and I've been guilty of this, Stacy, where you feel like you're a pretty good teacher because your data looks pretty good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good teacher, right? You have to look at, how are your kids coming to you? What resources do you have available to you, right? Do you have everything, that you need? Are the kids coming in reading at grade level? And then how are they leaving you, really, is the better question. And, what's the value add that you've put into their life? How much growth have they achieved while with you? And I think sometimes to be able to authentically get an answer to that question, what value do I bring to the table? You have to strip away all of the bells and whistles. Like you have to get down to, and I was sharing this with one of our other guests just the other day, and it's like we would love to kid ourselves that there's something brand new in K-12 education. The reality is that there really isn't. there's different ways to package the things that we've always done. There's a different device to run the things that we've always done. There's things like that to kind of mask the reality that when it comes down to it, we're teaching kids how to read, we're teaching kids how to write, we're teaching kids how to do arithmetic, we're teaching kids how to conduct science experiments and understand the world and the environment around them. How we go about doing that, maybe there's creative ways to do it, but ultimately, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's the same, right? Yeah.
Well, Massachusetts is in this weird. So I just served as the president of our state admin association this past year. And so I got to spend a lot of time with the commissioner, who has since resigned, but I was a huge fan. And he was a middle school guy. He was a middle school principal. And I do think we have different brains. I do. But he really had like a movement that he's more of like inquiry based. So the curriculum we're getting, like there's a lot of movement right now with doing civics projects with our 5th and 8th grade students. And they're trying to change our state assessment. We have MCAS here for our state assessment to make it more inquiry based, where we're teaching kids how to think. That's a different switch for me. That, it's not, what is it, skill and drill or whatever they do. It's not all rote memory. Like these kids are doing math that's just mind blowing, that they have to explain it out on a page for one problem and be able to, not miss a step of it. And then when we look at our new science curriculum, it's so slow paced that like when I went to the professional development on it, I was like, this is mind blowing. And then I found myself sitting in a room with principals and we all had the same aha moment. And I was like, that just happened. I can't even believe that just happened. But that's, again, like a shift that we're not just teaching kids chapter 1, chapter 2. It's all inquiry based. So I don't know if that's happening nationwide. Massachusetts, it's a heavy push right now.
Yeah, I would be curious to know that too. Whether or not it's a nationwide push or if it's state to state or district to district or even school to school for that matter.
Right.
I can tell you this, that last year, one of our building-wide goals, one of our look-fors, one of the things that I was looking for when I came in to observe and evaluate is kind of along the same lines that you were just describing around inquiry. We called it metacognition, but we took it a step further. When you hear the term metacognition, your initial thought, if you're familiar with it, is thinking about your thinking. But really what we wanted to empower our students to do is take the next step and have them practicing the skills of learning how to learn, right? I can think about my thinking and I could spend all day thinking about my thinking. But if I'm really trying to move and be an owner in my learning, I have to know what to do with the information that I'm thinking about, right? I have to know how to apply it. And then I need to know how to self-assess to see if I've met standard. And then I need to know if I haven't met standard, what I might need to do next to fill the gaps for why I haven't met standard. And so we spent, 180 days last year really thinking about that. And where we left off, it's a perfect thing to come back to. I'm hoping that this idea of metacognition and teaching kids to learn how to learn is something that comes up in every single episode of EP Talks, because I agree with you. I think it is maybe the most valuable skill that we can teach our students.
Agreed. And I feel like it's also slowed down the pace and the stress of learning.
Yeah.
Like I feel like with middle schoolers, like you can see sometimes their brains hurting. And I'm thinking that's a good thing. Like, you know what I mean? I do a lot of talk about the brain with middle schoolers because I feel like it's like fascinating. You talk about a brain with a middle school kid and they are immediately in this. I did that with my own children too. Like, don't screw up your brain. It's the only one you have. But I like the pace of it. I like that they've kind of shifted gears a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Well, you've been in the business long enough, like myself. I'm going into my 29th year here in Spokane. And some of my most valuable lessons, personally and professionally, have not come from the guru. They've come from the kid. And so my next question for you is, what's the most important lesson your students have taught you throughout your career?
This is a tough question. Most important lesson that my kids have taught me. I want to say resilience. but I feel like probably everybody says resilience. I'm amazed sometimes when I get to know, we have the luxury of seeing kids at the administration level in a different light. I have a new assistant principal that's starting brand new. And so I said to her, the hardest thing is that we build these relationships with these kids and the teachers don't see that. And they're always saying like, oh, there's another story. There's another story. Just seeing kids being vulnerable and I'm a big believer in like kids screw up. And I have a lot of conversations over the years. And I still have kids that years later will come back and go, I remember you told me the analogy of like, I use the analogy of a speed bump. You're going to hit a speed bump. You're going to hit it harder than some. You're going to get over it, but you can't hit it too many times. You could be damaging your car if you hit the speed bump. I feel like with kids, that's my big thing, even with parents, like these kids screw up. The problem is like, you have to like sit down and say, don't do it too many times. Like I'm a big believer in progressive discipline. I'm a big believer in like, sometimes things happen here. Like this year I had 2 twins, twin boys. And first week I dealt with both of them, not knowing that they had a really bad year with the previous principal the year before. And, I handle things very differently. And the mom came in and wrote me the loveliest letter and brought me a gift in at the last week of school. Those are things as a principal you don't ever get. And she said, no, you started out at the beginning. They knew the expectations. They knew where they stood with you. You gave them a chance to speak their minds. Like middle schoolers need a voice and they need to know that like, I'm listening. And like my kids always say, I have a very, very little shock value. Like nothing shocks me now. Like they come in and I'm like, kids will say stuff and I'll be like, in my head, oh my goodness. And then walk out and go, like, I think they've just taught me just be real. Like you used the word authentic before. I feel like I'm a very much authentic leader. I'm very transparent. But I'm very aware that kids are not perfect. Even academically with kids. And I just said this the other day we had our ad council last week. And I said, I always say to kids who are struggling, give me a C. I don't want an A and B. Give me a C. If you got an F, jump it up to a C. If you got an F, jump it up to a D. We just celebrated one of my tough kids this past year who did summer school. And I didn't think he was going to get through summer school. And when he walked in and was like, I did it, I passed. His last memory is going to be all of us embracing him, dancing around the office and saying, and I said to him, remember, you earned every right to be walking in those doors at that high school. You earned it. You've earned every right. That's the last thing he's going to remember when he walks into that school. It's like, I did it. Didn't think he was going to do it, but I guess, kids have just taught me, like, first of all, it's like we work hard, we play hard. This is what I'm going to say to the 5th graders when they come in on Wednesday for orientation. Parents, brace yourselves. We work hard, we play hard, but middle school kids are awesome. Like and I've always used it as the crossroads. It's like, you make your choice, you decide. It's like that small window where kids can figure out what they're going to be. And I think I've been doing this long enough now that I can sort of predict who's going to make it, who's not. I'd like for all of them to make it, but I'm realistic to go, that one's not going to make it. But yeah.
You were talking about how middle schoolers will mess up. We talked about, I can't remember if it was before we were recording or right after we started recording, but you should anticipate it.
Absolutely.
And not only, and this is the thing that I think the adults need to remember in education. Kids are going to mess up and we mess up.
Right.
The adults are going to mess up too. We're going to make mistakes. I'm sure that I've already made mistakes today that I don't even know about. I'm going to find out later. And it's human nature. And the reality is that it's those mistakes actually that provide the greatest opportunity for growth and the greatest opportunity for learning. No one grows or gets stronger from the same easy weights. There has to be a rupture and a repair, a rupture and a repair. In terms of the human part of education, we have to mess up.
Right.
That's where the rupture is, right? Yeah, I love that. I think that
and I love when kids call me out on it. So those twins I was telling you about, one was actually both were issues in the cafeteria, this middle school cafeteria. It's absolutely bananas. And so he comes in and I go like this, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, the place is great. It's crazy. You guys are insane in there. And he immediately goes, you know what you should do? I go, tell me what I should do. And it was like, you let too many of us sit at a table. And he had like a whole running list of things in his head. And I was like, you know what? Let's try it.
Yep.
Fine.
Twins, you're the first 2 members on my student advisory council.
Exactly. And that's what I said to the mom, like, you guys are the biggest, these 2 are the biggest leaders. They are. One went on, he was the captain of the soccer team this year. Like, yeah. But if you ask them, like, my whole thing is, if you have a problem, you're coming through my door, you better have a solution to it. The students know that, the staff knows that. I don't ever want to hear just problems. I can't do anything with problems. I can do something with solutions all day long. And now that, like, I get students talking to me and they're like, this is what we think you should do. Sometimes it gets a little crazy because I have 5th graders who I convinced to do petitions. And so now I have all these petitions. So I won't make that mistake too many times.
That's awesome. I think, Stacy, one other thing that you do clearly that is a difference maker. We have our staff retreat is coming up here shortly. And this will be something that I'll be sharing with them. And it's nice to hear that I'm not alone in this idea. And it's that before you do anything in life, and I'm not just talking about school, before you do anything in life or achieve anything in life, you first have to believe that you can do it.
Right. And
something that I can clearly hear in your voice is that you believe in your staff and you believe in your kids.
Absolutely.
And I think that you couldn't have a budget big enough to buy that. You either believe or you don't believe. And man, what a fortunate thing that your students and staff get to receive from you as their building leader, is just the belief that they can do it.
So I say, and this is like, now that I'm still hiring, is I had somebody tell me years ago, he was a college basketball coach, and he said, when I'm looking for players for my team and I'm recruiting, I don't want anybody on my team that I wouldn't have at my house for Sunday dinner. And I walked out of here in June and I said, I can honestly say there's not one person in this building that I wouldn't have at my house for Sunday dinner. I feel like when you're talking to students too, they need to know, like, welcome to my office, welcome to Sunday dinner. Like, yeah, it's just, people have to trust you. That's the hardest part.
Absolutely.
Is just maintaining that trust.
Yeah. All right. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
We're 27 minutes in, and I like to keep all opportunities for learning through Everyday Principle digestible. This should be something, whether you're reading a blog or listening to a podcast or engaging in one of the other assets that we have to offer, that it's something that you can do on your lunch break. It's something you can do on your commute. And this 30 minutes has been powerful. So, Stacy, I want to thank you so much again for being a guest. Thank you for teaching me. I'm going to walk away with a few nuggets that I can implement right away too. So without further ado,
Andre, thank you so much. And thank you for the work you're doing. It feels good to talk about just the love of being a principal. So thank you. I appreciate the invite.
Okay. Maybe you'll be back soon.
All right. I hope so.
All right.
The EP Talks podcast is brought to you by Everyday Principle, the leading learning management system for school administrators. EP Talks is one product in the suite of assets Everyday Principle has to offer. Other products include EP Collaborate and EP University. For more information how Everyday Principle can inform, influence, and inspire learning for you and your school district, contact us today at everydayprinciple.com.